Are we ready, Sam?
Yep, we good.
All right, thank you all for joining us at the October meeting of Parkside Council. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excuse me. Roll call, please.
Mr. Powers?
Here.
Ms. Percival?
Here.
Mr. Costigan?
Here.
Mr. Sidwell?
Here.
Mr. Solicitor?
Here.
Mr. Swaggart?
He said he'll be coming in.
Mr. Engineer?
Here.
Mr. Bull?
Here.
Madam President?
Here.
Madam Treasurer?
Here.
Mogani?
Here.
Daniel, what? Say your name. Kowakowitz? Karakowitz? And Brianna Morris.
Here. Has everybody had a chance to look over the August meeting, September meetings? Any questions? I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes. Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Is there any correspondence?
Yes. We have two items. Ed Fisher, September 10th, 2022 to October 18th, 2022. Good evening. Treasurer has received $1,130. I'm sorry, I apologize. $100,500. I apologize. I am all messed up. $100,130.57. There was an amount of $1,734.11 in revenue deposited from September 10th to October 18th. And then for October 2022, code violations. 1 violation of use and occupancy, 1 warning giving for dog running at large, 1 abandoned vehicle removed from the street, 2 litter issues, and ongoing investigation for squatters at a property. That's it.
Thank you. Mayor Rowland?
Thank you, Madam President. We're here to swear Joshua DiSilvestro in. He's our new part-time officer. So I'll start with that.
Are we supposed to approve his hiring?
Need a motion to approve.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can I have a motion to approve it?
Would you like to- Who can make that motion? Would you like to make that motion?
Well, Chief, can the chief introduce the new
Sure.
officer?
Sure. So Joshua comes to us from the city of Chester, where he is currently employed as a full-time police officer. He is trying to pick up a few odd hours here and there, help us out in the process. He's married. He has with him his wife and his daughter and some additional family members. Joshua was born here in Delaware County in Darby. Went to William Penn High School and Westchester University, where he graduated. He then attended the Delaware County Community College Police Academy, the state police academy that's held here in the county, where he graduated in December of 18. Has been on the hunt for a job after that, finally landed in Chester, where he has been for 2 years or so.
I was hired in the police academy in Chester.
Okay, so he's got almost 4 years under his belt in the city of Chester. We have being in desperate need of part-time police officers, and Josh fits the bill. We did a complete background check on Josh, and he passed all of the background investigation, which is all of this. We do a very thorough job. We have to, by state law, because of the issues that we've had in policing across the country. The state has cracked down and requires us to do a thorough background investigation, which we do for every new candidate, part-time or full-time. So I recommend that we move ahead with bringing Josh on and swearing him in tonight.
Make that motion.
I'll second.
So we get the name.
Joshua.
Joshua D.I. SYLVVESTRO. D. Silvestro. Thank you.
All right, we have a motion. Any questions? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? So moved. Welcome.
Thank you.
You can have hold your Bible.
Look that way.
Oh, sorry. My apologies.
Okay, repeat after me. I, Joshua D. Silvestro,
I, Joshua D. Silvestro,
do solemnly swear that I will support,
do solemnly swear that I will support,
obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States
obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the Commonwealth,
and the Constitution of the Commonwealth,
and that I will discharge the duties
and I will discharge the duties
of a police officer
of a police officer
of the Borough of Parkside with fidelity.
of the Borough of Parkside with fidelity. Sure. Sorry. Just want to say thank you, everyone, and I look forward to being part of the community. Thank you.
Yeah, that's the age where they can't be contained. For those of you who are here for the swearing in, you don't have to stay for the whole meeting.
Hey, we're gonna pass her bedtime.
Yeah.
Yeah, understood.
Okay, Mayor, do you have your
Yes.
report?
Yes, I have a couple of things for today. I'm sorry, and mine was messed up. Okay, so crimes reported in September, one, it was one theft. Calls for service were 92. 6 were animal complaints, 9 were medical emergencies, 18 were assist other agencies, 2 were domestic. Traffic detail, there were 27, motor vehicle stops, 21, traffic citations, 17, and warnings, there were 4. the chief and I spoke earlier in reference to the situation with the lights. And we've come to an agreement, I guess, with that.
Yeah.
So one night monthly, the chief will have one of the officers on midnight patrol go around and check all the lighting. So, and then whatever's out, he's gonna have them marked and everything, and it'll let Tamika know. And I also gave Tamika 5 different telephone pole numbers, so then she can call NI.
Okay.
Then for the cleaning, since I changed it over to mayor, Anna, your daughter Laura, got her certificate, and Milo Zaleski.
Zelensky, yeah.
Okay,
Zelensky, yeah, I'm not sure.
so can I give them to you?
Sure.
Okay. Give them to you after the meeting. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Okay, now it's time for call to citizens for agenda-related items only. Okay, last call. Sorry. It's gotta be a short one, though. Okay, for my president's report, I wanted to start by Ms. Percival had sent me some questions. Did you want me to answer them now?
Whatever your choice is.
Well, you had asked me to answer them, and so you asked which elected official created the proposal concerning the replacement of code enforcement and inspections, and that was me. Our permit fees and costs are way higher than our neighbors, and it is irresponsible for our residents for us not to explore our options. And you asked, since permits have not increased since 2016, why has this not been brought up since I became an elected official in 2020? And I did bring it up in previous meetings, but you insisted that our fees need to be higher than all our neighbors. And regarding the stories I shared from residents about Mr. Capabianco, you said that you're requesting the names and information of those residents, past or current, that I spoke to that made those statements. And you feel that I publicly defamed an employee, and all elected officials have the right to know his accusers. Ms. Percival, you have referred to anonymous residents numerous times and refused to name them. I am not going to name the people who shared their experiences with Mr. Capabianco because they are afraid of retribution. They are afraid that a fictional resident will make a complaint that costs them thousands of dollars. They are afraid of all the extra hoops Mr. Capabianco will make them jump through if they try to sell their houses. And I have asked, and you said you have asked numerous times if we are going to have a new agenda item for attacking council members. I can only say that in the September 2020 meeting, you read my social media and attacked me. And in March of 2021, you attacked Mr. Sidlow. These were both during your president's report, as well as numerous other times before, after, and in between. So I assumed that was the appropriate time to bring up such issues. Now, on to a different topic. Mr. Powers stated in the budget meeting that he would like to be paid $10,000 per year as fire marshal and $10,000 for his work as an emergency manager. How much do you think Brookhaven pays for their fire marshal? It's $10,000. They pay their fire marshal $10,000, and their emergency manager is paid $6,000 per year. Regardless of the fact that he wants to be paid more than his counterparts in a borough several times our size, it is inappropriate for him to even bring it up as a member of council. According to PA law, elected and appointed borough officials and borough employees are restricted from an interest in borough contracts and purchases to the extent provided in 65 PA CS Chapter 11 relating to ethics standards and financial disclosure. That reads, no public official or public employee or his spouse or child or any business in which the person or his spouse or child is associated shall enter into any contract valued at $500 or more with the governmental body with which the public official is associated. Let's see, I'm gonna skip through because some of this is wordy. But it says it should include prior public notice and subsequent public disclosure of all proposals considered and contracts awarded. I believe we are obligated under the law to get other bids for these as well as the inspection and code enforcement jobs, since we are paying well more than our neighbors. It would be a completely different story if our residents were not paying the highest fees in the county, but they are. It is irresponsible for us to overcharge our residents so we can overpay our employees. And that is all I have.
Excuse me, are you finished?
I am. Did you want to respond?
I do. In 2020 and 2021, I specifically had information that was accurate and substantial in the facts. When you accuse somebody and you defame an employee and you don't share those, even if it's privately with counsel, that's unfair to that employee. I'm not sure why you brought up Mr. Powers. This is not a budget meeting. This is a government meeting, council meeting.
It is.
Our budget meeting is next month or next week. I'd like to correct you on two things. You brought up the statement that if anybody puts in more than one right to know, that we can actually sue that person for harassment.
That's not exactly what I said.
You did say that we would sue them for harassment. The right to know law says that requesters should use good judgment in seeking agency records. The right to know law should not be used to harass or overburden an agency. Section 506 of the right to know law allows an agency to deny repeated requests for the same records by the same requester. You also at one point quoted the reason why we have section 1104 of the Borough Code, stating that the Borough Code was used to eliminate somebody from gaining financially as an employee here, and that's incorrect. This section of 1104 of the Borough Code was put in there so that any elected official with a population of 3,000 people or less may actually be a paid employee of the borough, not restricting their financial gains. So if anybody would like to see that, I have copies, I can make it for you after the meeting. And there is no, under section 1104C, multiple offices, there is no incompatibility in the fact and subject to section A as to compensation appointees of council that may hold 2 or more appointed borough offices, which meaning Mr. Powers can be an elected official, fire marshal, and emergency management. That's all I have.
Could you read the
Sorry.
last part about 2 or more again?
Section C of 1104, multiple offices. There is no incompatibility in the fact and subject to subsection A, and subsection A discusses the commission and the borough. As to compensation, employees of council may hold 2 or more appointed borough offices, but not the mayor. And of course, the elected official cannot serve as a borough manager, secretary, or treasurer in which he is or she is elected in that specific municipality. And I can make you a copy after the meeting.
Just a couple issues on the laws, if I may. On the right to know harassment issue, you're absolutely right, Ms. Perzel, that's what the statute says, unfortunately for every municipality. The Office of Open Records, and more importantly, the courts have held that it's a pretty high bar for harassment. It has to be literally the same thing over and over. It can't just be, well, I want all the emails on this subject in this month. And then the next month they do the same thing, but it's a different month. It's different. That doesn't mean the level for harassment. And believe me, we've looked at this for a lot of our clients. So it's not until they're asking for the same thing over and over that it meets the definition of harassment.
That's correct.
Deny it on that ground. And the issue of the offices, again, you're correct, under the borough code that when a Parkside has a small population like it does, you can have borough council members and appointed offices. But there are also the ethics rules, I think what the president was referring to, and that's the section 1103 or something. It's 1103 of the Ethics Act that says, if an elected official is going to make money essentially on anything, if it's going to benefit them financially or benefit any family member financially, then that's when they have to recuse themselves, and just, you can't be involved at all. If you're an elected official, and I mean, you can't really even talk about what you make. You can't make any motions for what you make. I mean, you cannot be involved. You can have the office, you can get paid, but you can't be involved in setting that salary or anything like that. And did you say $500? That's the 1103 Ethics Act. Basically, the courts have been clear. You don't have to have competitive bidding or anything like that, but you just do have to have a pretty open process. Again, if an elected official is going to be making money off something, they can't be involved at all. So they can't in any way, shape, or form be involved with that process. They can't vote on the money they make or anything like that. And it's the $500. It's kind of I guess a de minimis cutoff. So you're right. Borough code, absolutely, people can work and be on council, but ethics also applies, so they can't be involved.
Mr. Solicitor, I understand the section you're referring to allows a person to vote on a budget or financial issue, excusing himself from that particular section that pertains to that person.
I mean, if the budget, if they're approving something that puts money in their pocket, they really shouldn't be involved with it.
So they shouldn't vote on the entire, so a council member working for the borough should not vote on the entire budget.
I mean, it's difficult to see how they could if they're making money out of it. I mean, again, it's an unusual situation for somebody to be working for the borough, and you can't use your office to make money, and that's just the bottom line. And I'm happy to do some research, under the general bill, and send everybody an email that outlines these rules.
My understanding, we have several municipalities in this county that are under 3,000 population. And if an employee is also an elected official, then they will excuse themselves from that specific area of the budget. If it's a secretary, or in this case, fire marshal, they can vote aye on the budget and no on that, or excuse themselves from that specific area.
Can you name another small town, small borough in Delaware County that hires their council members?
I was involved in section 1104 of the Borough Code when it was initially instituted. I will tell you, I was involved with the senator's office, and how this law came about was a local municipality had a young lady who was working as a secretary who was an elected official, but she was not getting compensated. The elected officials of that municipality contacted the local senator at that time, and through commission and committees, this law was proposed and passed. So yes, I can verify the whole process from soup to nuts.
Yeah, and I haven't seen that, Ms. Percival. What I would recommend, and this will be, the first budget cycle where I'm involved, is we can, have the budget except for anything that anybody on the council is getting compensated for, and then we can break those pieces out and perhaps vote on those separately. I think that would make the most sense.
Mrs. Guy, you stated that the municipality fire marshal is making $10,000 and emergency management coordinator is making $6,000 for a total of $16,000
Per year in Brookhaven.
Okay. Are you aware of making $8,000 as a health official and 0 as the emergency management coordinator, and 10,000 as the fire marshal. So I'm doing 3 jobs for $18,000, while this person is doing 2 jobs for $16,000. Are you also aware that you went to a municipality? No, I'm not being quiet. You also went.
Hold on, real quick. You're breaking the Ethics Act right now. So I'm advising you, you should not be talking about the money that you make sitting here as part of.
It's
council.
public record.
Okay, I'm just advising you.
That's fine.
You're violating the ethics.
That's fine. It's a public record. I have nothing to hide. I can assure you, I do a lot more work than $18,000 that I'm allotted. Are you also, you stated that you checked with the local municipalities making $18,000. Did you also check the next local municipality that the same person doing the same job is making $72,000?
Which town is that?
I'm not going to tell you who it was. I told you in the past meetings who it was.
Well, then your evidence is very clear.
But you're telling me Brookhaven's emergency management coordinator and their fire
It's two
marshal
separate
making
people.
$16,000.
And it's 2 different boroughs.
In Brookhaven,
Can't
right?
compare. We can't
Right,
compare.
because Brookhaven is much bigger than
Well,
Parkside is.
Upland's
And this man
emergency
does 3
management
jobs.
coordinator, Upland's emergency management coordinator and fire marshal is making $72,000 a year.
It's
So
Upland.
you didn't bring that up. It's
They have a
Upland. Brook, who's
hospital.
bigger, Brookhaven or Upland?
Okay,
No. Again, it's just a personal vendetta against me
no,
because I'm
it's-
Republican. And that's all it is.
you know what? This is not a personal
It
vendetta.
is a personal vendetta.
All right, would you like to let me speak without interruption
I
for
don't
a
care what you have
moment?
to say.
This is not a personal vendetta.
It is.
This is,
You
Oh,
made
my
$7,500 over 2 years and did nothing on council. Along with your cohort sitting over there, that you two are in cahoots. Because you attacked me at the budget meeting before the budget meeting even started. It's on film. The first thing you did was went after me and my salary.
No, I brought up that fact, I brought up the fact that you.
Yeah,
have
because
a
you two are
conflict-
together.
conflict
You
of
two are
interest.
together.
Look, Rob, look, this borough for many years has had conflicts of interest left and right, okay? And now that we have a different party in leadership, we are attempting to try to get out of this government, council members getting paid for themselves, okay? It has got to stop, and it is not the way to run a government. And
1104 B, A, B, and C says a government under 3,000, what Ms. Percival already stated, can happen. We've tried to hire people in the past. In the middle of a snowstorm, nobody showed up to plow these streets. I got out of bed and did it for $10 an hour. Did you get out of bed and do it? No. You don't even pick up a leaf around here, Scott. Let alone ask you to do something.
Okay,
Anytime you have something to
I
do,
think that's
you want to come in and create a committee
all
and
right.
have those residents do it. So you're sorry, but don't have to do it.
it's more
Mr.
that I.
Siglo, could you tell me who the conflict of interests were that you just mentioned?
Oh, gosh.
Well, I wasn't gonna bring this up, but, I mean, this is a, set of invoices from Capo's handyman services.
Has nothing to do with me. Nothing.
Different subject.
She asked
No,
the
you
question. She did ask
This
the
is the most
question.
ridiculous president report I ever heard.
So,
Why don't we talk to the president report that you failed to bring a grant through that you left sit on your desk for 2 weeks and it passed on Friday? Now we can't get the grant for public safety and crossing.
so,
You don't know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I do.
Well, we'll discuss that with Mr. Rodeo later then.
so to answer Mrs. Percival's question,
It's funny. It's
Throughout-
always funny.
throughout the pandemic, when we were having virtual meetings, Mr. Capobianco stated over and over and over again in meetings that he was cleaning the borough buildings for free
Mhm.
and receiving no compensation for it, and that it was worth $1,000. Now,
Yeah, this should be old business. This shouldn't be part of the president's report.
She asked the
Doesn't
question.
matter.
It should be old business.
so, Mr. Capobianco said he was doing it for free. He said that he took care of the cost of the materials. And
That's
then
not what he said.
And then he sent the borough bills for eight $1,000 bills for services that he was doing for free. And then he did not indicate that he was voting on money that he was being paid for. He voted to receive payment from the borough directly, okay?
No.
It was a straight violation of the ethics rules. You were council president. You were aware of these bills. You did nothing to ensure that Mr. Capobianco was following the Ethics Act. Okay? This is completely unacceptable example of the way in which council members are taking care of themselves, and it needs to stop if we're going to run good, effective government that is cost effective for the residents.
Did you not vote on that bill as well as Mrs. Guy?
Where was Mr. Capo?
Or did you not
I-
vote and Mrs. Guy voted on the?
You know what?
I
You know
was-
what? I will
Don't-
admit I
Do
voted
not
on
gavel
it.
me when I'm in the middle of
I will
something.
say
That's
that,
getting
yes,
old.
I voted for the bill, but
Thank you.
where was Mr. Capobianco saying, as part of the ethics rules, that Mr.
Did you
that
not
Mr.
read
Musso
the
just
bills
explained-
of
excuse me,
approval that
where-
said cleaning supplies?
Where was he saying, I am being paid on this invoice? Why did he not say when the bills were being passed that I am being paid? Why did he vote for himself?
Are you
Why
done?
did you let him vote for himself?
He did not vote for himself.
He voted to pay the
If you
bills.
read the bill, it is for the supplies that were used, disinfecting.
That's
supplies,
$8,000.
That's
two
140,
police
that's $141.
vehicles,
And then there are
disinfectants.
8 invoices for $1,000 each.
Did you not understand, and we've gone through this, just so the public knows, we've gone through this in emails numerous times. This is for supplies. Would you take the supplies out of your own pocket if you did the service?
$8,000.
$141 for supplies is reasonable.
$8,000. You're putting out false information.
What are you
Can I
talking-
just- Can I just say something? Because the only, I wasn't on council at this time, so I don't really know much about these invoices. But the only chemical that is mentioned in the invoices is turgicide. I did the research, I looked that up. You can get it from different companies. Basically, you can get 4 gallons for anywhere from $150 to $200 for 4 gallons. So if we spent $8,000 doing the math, it's about 160 gallons of this chemical. So where are the receipts for the chemical? Because there are no receipts here. And anytime I have to submit a reimbursement for recreation events, I have to have receipts for what I pay for. There's no receipts. And where are the 160 gallons of chemicals? And also, I don't really want to bring up my personal life, but I did a similar service at Our Lady of Charity for about the same amount of time that Mr. Capobianco did. I cleaned the whole church, every pew, any surface, door handle, anything. The square footage of that church is much bigger than this borough building. I did it 4 times a week. 4 times a week. I don't know how often Mr. Capobianco cleaned this building. I'm sure it wasn't 4 times a week.
Once a month.
I can
No, it wasn't.
assure
It
you
was more.
that the amount of money I made is a quarter of this, if that. So just as a reference for somebody who did a similar service, and I was being paid for my time. That wasn't just the cost of the chemicals. The total cost of that it's a big church. If you've never been there, it's a big church. I got less than a quarter of that. And if he was being paid for these chemicals, where are the receipts for the chemicals? And where are all of these chemicals that he bought? 160 gallons, in my estimation, for $8,000.
It was also in the minutes.
Can I read this, please? Because everybody's saying 8,000. There's other receipts attached to this for the fogging machine. There's reimbursement for a sign.
Those are different.
There's
This is
all-
an invoice
Okay, let me read the
for
technical notes.
$8,000 for this invoice.
Let me read the technical notes. Disinfecting services, treated borough offices, office area, lobby, kitchen, council chambers, all desks, chairs, equipment, all doors, light switches, hall, bathroom, storage area, treated police department areas, office, kitchen, locker rooms, bathroom, holding cell, desk area, chairs, all doors, switches, treated 2 vehicles, fan sprayed interior services, computer, radios, wiped down when done, cleaned the windows. That wasn't the only chemical he used. There's 4 other chemicals that are involved here. So it's just not one. And it was a fogging machine that was purchased.
These are
These
the ingredients. These are the ingredients. If you look at it, it's 2.54% didecyl dimethyl whatever chloride. So these are the ingredients in Turgicide, which is the only chemical he ever mentions in any of these
But
invoices.
if you use the fogger.
So
the way
you're,
it's
so you're
supposed to do-
misstating. You know, this is a
I
public meeting.
understand what you're saying.
And no, you don't, because the public should know clearly what's happening. And you are saying there's multiple chemicals. There's one chemical, and I looked up
And
the
here's the
chemical,
formula
and it
ingredient.
costed
This is all-
$200
And that's
for
the
4
formula-
gallons,
and that's the
not
formula-
$8,000.
That's the formula ingredient.
Yes, that's what I'm saying, yes.
That's what I just said.
And these invoices
And if you
say,
didn't fog and then leave the building for 20 minutes and then wipe down, then
The
you weren't
scope of
doing
work-
it
the
correctly.
scope
it
of
was
work
good
is
enough for the Archdiocese of Philadelphia.
The scope of work is
But you don't
irrelevant.
have the same clientele we have coming in the police.
Yeah, we
department.
have 200 people a week.
Your church was
There
closed.
aren't 200 people that come to this
Your
building
church
in a
was
month,
closed.
for 1 month. And then after that 1 month, I did this service 4 times a week until
The
June
point-
of 2021.
And I'm not gonna debate it. The point is, we have members on this council that never asked one question about the supply order. how
Where
it
was the
paid.
council member, where was the council president announcing that a council member is being paid on the bills that are being issued?
He
This
was
is so,
Paid
this
for
is-
supplies and you voted for it.
it was
So where are the
this
receipts?
invoice is $141 in
And never
supplies.
asked one question.
Mrs. Percival, who's more guilty? The person who got fooled or the person doing the fooling? Which would be you and Mr.
I guess
Capobianco.
the person doesn't read what he's voting on.
But if you read what you were voting on, it's to
So
Capos.
your defense is I'm a bad politician and you're a corrupt politician.
This
That's
has
a very
nothing
good
to do
argument.
with politics.
And so I wasn't there
You
at the,
voted, then I think that the issue is not you, Mr. Costigan. It's right there, Mrs. Guy, Mr. Sidlow. You read the bills for approval. It said cleaning supplies, and you did not ask a question,
Can I-
and you voted on
It
it.
did not say cleaning supplies, it would have said cleaning services. And did you announce to the community that Mr. Capobianco was being paid on an invoice? Did you do that? Did you do
He
that?
was paid for supplies, not
Where are the
services.
receipts?
This is not an
Supplies.
invoice for
I said
supply,
this
this is
is
an
about
invoice for a
transport.
cleaning service.
I wasn't even on council.
This is
at
an
the time.
invoice
It
for,
wasn't under
this
my
is an
tenure.
invoice for a cleaning service, this is not an invoice
It's an
for
invoice.
chemicals.
If you read it, it says supplies.
Okay, I think we've had enough of this.
Can I just say one thing really quickly? Because just so the public is aware, I mean, I wasn't on council at the time, so I didn't make that vote. But if I had been on council and I saw an invoice for Capo's Handyman Services and talking about cleaning and sanitizing the building, I wouldn't have that many questions about it because it looks like it's a professional service that we're paying to clean the building. Capo's Handyman Services. Nick Capobianco, his name is not anywhere on any of these bills. So I wouldn't know that it was him doing the work. And he said he was doing it at no expense to the borough.
And why, if he's a borough employee,
But
what?
not for the supplies.
So
Nobody's
then,
gonna
okay,
take that
you
out of
keep
their
saying
pocket,
that.
not
You
get
keep saying
reimbursed.
that. You
And
keep,
nobody here volunteered to do this.
If he's a borough employee.
I would have done it for $8,000.
If he's a borough,
You weren't here.
if he's a borough employee, why wasn't he paid hourly to do the service? Why is he providing an invoice for a handyman service? And how did he get the gig? He got the gig because he said he was gonna do it at a council meeting. And then told everyone at the council meeting, I am doing this for free, no charge to the borough, while he was running for reelection. It is the most corrupt thing I have ever seen in my life. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Well, maybe you should read the bills for approval before you approve them.
And he would
Okay,
have said Capo's Handyman Services.
But why not
may,
ask the question?
look, let's be clear, the Ethics Act requires that if somebody's on council, and again, I wasn't here as well, they have to announce it. It's the whole point of the Ethics Act is that it has to be clear to everybody involved that what is being paid is going to one of the elected officials. That person has to announce that I'm going to recuse myself. I'm recusing myself because I own whatever it was, Capo Cleaning Services, and there's a bill here, so therefore I'm recusing myself. And again, I will, under the general file, send the council kind of the rules of ethics and how we should proceed, at least going forward.
so we're looking to end this as a Democratic majority, and we're
Again,
trying.
politics are nonpartisan. When you're elected, it's to be a nonpartisan group.
You're after me because I'm Republican. You just said it.
See,
No, it's.
it's always 50-50 here, only when it's a Democrat issue.
No Democrat's been paid.
No Democrats are receiving
We are
money.
to be nonpartisan once you
I'm
are
working for it, I'm
elected.
not taking money.
Okay. Mr. Bowles, finance report.
Thank you, Madam President. Motion to pay the bills.
Second.
Questions?
Are there any council members receiving money in this current round of bills?
Did not see any council members receiving money.
I'm just asking any member of council.
Did you
who
read
is
the
rec-
bills?
I am asking any member of council who is receiving money in the bills to announce that they are receiving it. Thank you.
Do I need to say that I'm getting reimbursed for postage?
You don't because
You're
for.
on
Okay,
You're
no,
not voting.
You're not
I'm getting
voting on
reimbursed
it.
for postage and I just, you know,
You're not voting.
okay.
Yes, you did get reimbursed for postage,
Okay.
because we don't have a petty.
And am I gonna get paid for my $100 inspection I did?
I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay, all in favor of paying the bills?
Aye.
All opposed? So moved.
I've tried opposing and paying the bills. We still have to pay them. Tried that a few years ago. Treasurer's report to the Borough of Parkside, date October 18th, meeting October 19th, 2022. All bank accounts were reconciled through September 30th, 2022. We are including the bank reconciliation and statements for all reconciled funds for council's approval. General fund for the month of September, $155,255.58 was deposited into TD Bank, which included $122,325.17 of ARPA funds and expenses of $4,370.44 were paid. During that period, $32,234.07 of deposits were received into Sharon Bank's general fund, and $120,102.56 of expenses were paid, including payroll of $34,881.74. Attached are the transactions that flowed through Sharon Bank's general fund and TD Bank's general fund. I will make a motion to accept the treasurer's report.
Second.
Any questions?
Yes. I noticed on the treasurer's report that we have not paid our MMO yet for $118,160.
We paid that on October 5th.
Super. Also, the solicitor's invoice was not paid in the month of September, and there was no change in the recreation committee. And I'm sure they must have spent money on Community Day, and that's not reflected on the treasurer's report.
I don't know that those receipts got in before the end of the month. I don't know that they got in before the end of September. Or that I submitted them towards the end of September, so processing it may not be till the October.
Well, you received donations. Did that go in before the end of
But
September?
they should have.
Well, that's not reflected.
But that's the expense part of the budget, so it wouldn't be under the expenses. That was
But
under
the
income.
donation should have hit against the recreation committee.
Right, but that part of the budget is expenses, so it wouldn't have been under expenses.
No, the budget is income and expenditures. And the donations we received is not hit against the recreation committee, showing a plus.
It should be $450.
It's only $460 some
No,
dollars.
the budget line is $450.
Yeah, it's,
That's the expense line,
Oh, the
the
income.
income line would be three. There's the,
I know the treasurer's company is moving, so if you could get back to me
Yeah.
on that, I'd appreciate it.
I'm sure that contributions and donations, 358527. That's
I
for
don't
the
know
year.
that
Let
all
me
of
see for the
that
month.
was.
That was for the year. That was not all community day. Let's see for the month. I'm fairly certain that they did get in because Kathleen, who is replacing Andrew, had come down on that last day of September, and they counted the cash.
Yes.
And she went to the bank that day, and
Correct.
I think
And
that was September.
approximately like 1,500 in cash.
Yeah, so it,
Roughly about 1,500 in cash, and maybe like $200 in checks.
Could that have been the miscellaneous revenue for 1881?
Yes,
Does that sound about right?
miscellaneous, yeah, you know what?
yes, that was not
Okay.
put in the right place.
It
Thank
needs
you.
to be reclassified.
It does, please.
Also, on the first page, after the balance sheet previous year comparison, down at the bottom, there's miscellaneous revenue of 128,268.
That's your
Is that the
ARPA
ARPA?
funds.
That's the ARPA, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, that just came through.
Okay, any other questions? All those in favor of accepting the treasurer's report?
Aye.
All those opposed? So moved.
Madam President, report general progress on the rest. We will have a budget meeting next Wednesday at 7 PM.
Okay.
Should be well, it won't be the first reading for council. It'll be the first go through. We're gonna have our first reading at the November meeting. Moving on to open space report, I can report general progress.
Thank you very much. Mr. Costigan, Junior Council report.
Thank you, Madam President. I don't know if anybody from the junior council would like to say anything about what you've done so far, but I'll open the floor if you do. No. They're very quiet, which I like that. Not let me rephrase that. I'm also very quiet, so being around quiet people, I like that. But they're very dedicated, very intelligent individuals. It's been great working with them so far. We've been talking about different committees, different questions they had. They all want to get involved in different ways, so they're trying to figure out what they want to do, what committees they want to be involved in, and just continue to be amazed by them and excited for what they're going to do. For recreation, we had our first craft fair this past Saturday. It was, I think, pretty successful for our first one. I think we will definitely plan on doing more of those in the future. Hopefully building that up. And I know Beth Hale, who spearheaded that effort, she's definitely wanting to bring more art events to Parkside. We did the tie-dye event, so hopefully we'll be building up to bigger art events in the future. We also have some Halloween events coming up in the next couple weeks. On the 28th, there's a monster mash for 5th and 6th graders at Brookhaven's Borough Building. And then the 29th is our trunk or treat that's hosted by the Firehouse. And then on the 30th is our haunted Halloween walk in the Woodlot. So stay tuned for that, and hopefully we'll see some of the children from the borough there. And then we've also begun our planning for our holiday party in December, which and our tree lighting also. So these are some of the things. As always, if you're interested in helping out with recreation events, feel free to attend our meetings. We meet the first Wednesday of every month at 6:30 here in the Borough Hall. We're always looking for new ideas and new voices, and it's a fun group of people. So if you're interested, come out for those meetings.
Mr. Costigan,
Yeah,
do you have times for the trunk or treat or the Halloween walk?
I think the trunk or treat is 4 to 7. Yeah, I was going to discuss that under new business.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
And then the Halloween walk,
6:30.
okay, 6:30 in the Woodlot. And that's the 30th, and the trunk or treat is Saturday, 29th. And then the dance, I think, is 7 to 9 or 6 to 9. And then, so for police, As everyone may or may not be aware, we're in the process of hiring 2 additional full-time officers for next year in order to address some of the short-term, the part-time staffing shortages we've had of police. It's great that the new officer was sworn in tonight. That's really promising, and it's great that, we do have new part-timers in Parkside, because that's not the trend in the county, or the country, really. And so a part of that process in hiring an additional full-time officer at this point, because when you get up to 3 or more, you need a civil service commission to hire the officers, so that the council is not even really involved in hiring the officers. The commission does the hiring. So we have to get that set up first in order to be able to hire those officers. So I wanted to start a discussion about the Civil Service Commission, what we need to do in order to get that going. And I know the chief had some procedures or rules for civil service that he had gathered based on other communities in the area. So I guess if you want to start off, Chief, talking about some of these.
Sure. What I've done in anticipation of the potential for hiring additional and knowing that we're going to need civil service rules and regulations, I looked at Upland Borough, I looked at Brookhaven Borough, I looked at Swarthmore Borough, and they're all in essence the same. There's very, very few differentiations in that document. If you pick up Brookhaven's or Uplands or Swarthmore's, it's almost word for word. Okay, it's kind of a standard template. It's all based on the laws of the Commonwealth, what is required of a borough under the borough code, and it basically just sets that in writing so that when the borough officials appoint a civil service commission, that's their Bible, that's their guidelines that they go by. The only thing that I would correct Mike in they don't actually do the hiring, okay? They recommend to council. Council gets the final decision on hiring any full-time officer under civil service regulations. They'll be presented with a list of 3. Once they hire one, they move number 4 up to number 3, and they hire number 2 if that's the way it's going to be done. Okay, but the council is always choosing from the top 3. In there, it talks about veterans' preference. Okay, again, a state codified law that says if there's a veteran who tests, okay, at the end of the test process, okay, test process is 2 different scores, a written score, okay, which is described in there, and an oral interview. Those 2 scores are combined. The rankings of those that took the test are placed by the Civil Service Commission. And then if someone claims veterans preference, that's where they get an additional 10 points. So let's say, for the sake of argument, a candidate scores a combined score of 85%. Okay. The top score, let's say, is a 96. That 85 gets 10 points. That moves him up to 95. So he would be right under the top score. If a candidate who has civil service preference makes the list of top 3, he gets the first nod. He gets hired before the other 2 would be considered. Okay. And it's all outlined in there. So once council approves, and I'll kind of lean to the solicitor to guide us there. My guess is that should be advertised and adopted by council, and then a civil service commission of 3 people be appointed. And, you know, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that front.
No, you're very correct on all fronts. You appoint 3 residents of the community, one for a 2-year term, one for a 4-year, one for a 6-year term, so that eventually everybody's in staggered 6-year terms. The commission has its own solicitor, has its own, you know, it's almost like a zoning hearing board, in that you appoint it, but they are quasi-independent to make sure that the hiring process is sacrosanct. But the chief is exactly right. They kind of filter through people and then give to you, here are the names that have gone through the approved filtering process.
And we do have this somewhere on the books. We had a Civil Service Commission 2005 into 2006. So I believe that we've already processed all this. We had 1 elected official, which is permissible, as our solicitor may know, and 2 residents. We had a civil service solicitor at that time already appointed. I did give Mr. Costigan that gentleman's name. So we do have the information out there from 2005, I believe it was 2005 or 6.
Okay. We would probably take a look at it just to make sure it's up to date.
Yes. Mhm.
This one does say it's incompatible to have an elected official on it.
I'm sorry?
This one says it's incompatible to have an elected official on
The law says you can, so maybe.
You can.
Yeah.
That's
There's
correct.
a provision in there, if you read it through, Doug, there's a provision in there where 1 member of council
Mhm.
can sit on the Civil Service Commission. Doesn't say they have to. It
Right.
says that you can.
And it's quirky because I believe that you're only allowed to have 1 person who is in the teaching profession.
I only made it to page 5.
Right, because there's
My
a rule
apologies.
against, there are restrictions, so it's hard, you can't have other elected officials or people of really other governmental employees, except you can have 1 teacher, except you can have 1.
Except 1 elected official.
We always get the short end of the stick. So then what would be, Mr. Solicitor, what would be our next step in the process?
So when are you planning on bringing on this other full-time police officer?
Well, we don't really have it set in stone. I mean, originally we were shooting for the beginning of the year, but I don't think we're ever going to get that by the beginning of the year, but as soon as we can, realistically.
And I'm sorry, how many police officers, full-time police officers do you have now?
2 full-time now, and we're adding 2 more.
So it's really adding that 3rd one that kicks all this off. I mean, look, we'll review this. If you want to approve an updated version in November, we can do that. If you want to approve it in December, you can do that. I mean, it's really that 3rd officer then triggers the need to create the commission. So it hasn't really been triggered yet, but it doesn't hurt to have it in place either. So my recommendation is let us take a look at this, see what you have on the books. I mean, if we can even do something where we can bring you an updated version in November, you can discuss it, and then we can advertise it to be approved at the December meeting so that this is in place. And then at the January meeting, you can appoint the members of the commission, even simultaneously with hiring 2 police officers if you want at that point.
Okay.
Well, shouldn't this be done as soon as possible? Because we've already spent over $32,000 for another municipality to do patrolling. So shouldn't we get this on the list for November and sort of keep it moving?
I think we should, yeah. I don't know if we have to advertise it.
So, yeah, you're gonna have to advertise. I mean, we meet once a month.
It's
I mean, look,
much
so
standard.
if you wanna have this ready and advertised to be voted on in November, I mean, what we can do is we can take a look at it. I mean, the chief's right. This is all pretty standard.
It's
We're
standard.
solicitors for lots of commissions, so we can see what you have, see what this is, circulate a document and say, this is what we're gonna advertise. You can always make minor changes at the meeting, but we can have something ready for you to approve at the November meeting.
Okay.
And then we can, talk about appointing people to the commission in December so that you are 100% ready to go in January.
Okay.
And isn't most of the requirements and I I guess, procedure already listed in Borough Code?
There's a lot, but you do need one of these.
Okay.
And so, but like you said, Mr. Brazil, you have one, so it could be just a matter of advertising a few
Finding it.
changes to your existing.
Madam President, I have a question. Is 3 the trigger?
Yeah.
So we could essentially hire 1 and then
Yes.
trigger for the 4th. To
Right.
keep this moving, because we are actually burning
Okay,
money having.
Fine. I mean, you could, yes.
So we don't need this to hire the third, we need this after.
The
we
third
hire
triggers the need to require.
3 is the number?
It's required to hire.
So once we hire the third one, then.
Wait,
we
no,
have to have this
is
in
it,
place.
is it required to hire the third?
It's
Required after?
required for the third one.
I believe
right?
that it's to hire a third
One, it
officer.
triggers it.
Okay,
This
so
has
we
to
have
be
have
in
this in
place.
Before we hire the third one.
Yes.
Just trying to make sure we have
I
the
mean,
timetable clear.
required to hire.
The way I read the borough code, it says that less than 3 does not require the civil service procedures that we have here. So to me, less than 3 means 2. If we hire a third, this has to be in place.
I mean, it's certainly less than 3. Safer. All right, so then we'll have it ready to go to the vote in November. You can appoint the people in December, and then January, you're all set to hire as many as you want, right? I mean, they gotta go through the process. But.
I was just hoping the trigger would be at 3, so we could keep this thing rolling along quickly.
Yeah.
But I would make the motion to adopt the Civil Service Commission to keep it rolling. We can work on the paperwork in November. We can get everything squared
Well, I
away.
think it has to be advertised, so.
What I mean, advertise it.
So,
Motion to advertise.
All right, motion to advertise in time for the November
Yeah.
meeting.
Do we need to make a motion to add that to the agenda?
Yes. Well, you know what, no, there was
No, because.
there's a discussion for
of the
Civil Service Commission, and all you're doing is voting to advertise. You just-
Okay, okay.
You could vote to advertise a revised Civil Service Commission rules and
Would you like to make a
regulations.
motion?
I think
Doug made the motion. Doug made the motion. Who
I'll
seconded?
second.
And you seconded. Questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Thank you. Motion to advertise passed.
And should we not already start looking for a solicitor and start getting all our ducks in a row for appointments and to keep this moving?
Yeah, what kind of a process do you envision for that? Because I know we have the gentleman that you gave me. I think personally, I don't really know him that at all. I think probably he makes a lot of sense, but I think it also is wise to interview a few people and meet with them and see, who they are.
I think somebody with experience in civil service that didn't start from scratch.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I'm sure he's not the only civil service solicitor either.
don't
I mean,
know.
I personally, I'm sure he probably will be great, but I just think it makes sense to at least open it up to people.
What's a typical way to hire an attorney, Mr. Musso, is to put out a few contacts and say we're looking to hire, or just finding one and going with one, or?
So with professional services, there are no bidding requirements or anything like that. So you could just decide at the November meeting, vote to appoint somebody. You could interview. You could put out what's called an RFQ. Typically, most places put out some kind of RFQ, even though it's not required. Typically, you would say, "Hey, we're going to start a civil service commission. Interested people to be the solicitor. Submit, a letter indicating interest with the relevant experience and what you would charge, by such and such a date."
Mr. Saylor sat in on a few of these. He's local.
Mr. Saylor?
He's an attorney, lives around the corner. He's been in on the board and a few things.
And I think the police committee, we could work with that, work on that moving forward too.
Doug, who did you say?
Mr. Saylor?
Oh, no,
Oh, no?
no, he
Oh,
just
no?
had, no.
Oh, yeah, that's it.
He,
Oh, no.
Mr. Saylor just had emergency surgery on his knee and will be out for about 10 weeks.
Okay.
Yesterday, I believe the surgery was, or Monday.
There was something pending, but I didn't know that was.
Are you done, Michael?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, Mr. Sidla.
Okay. So the ordinance committee keeps meeting on the first Monday of, first Tuesday of each month at 7 PM. And our numbers are dwindling. Mr. Howell has moved out of the borough, and some other folks who had planned to participate never actually participated. And also the Sweeneys were focusing more on recreation than on ordinances. So we're looking for some people to participate. And again, we're doing this to invite anyone in the community who wants to participate in reviewing the ordinance to participate. It's to create an open and fair process that the ordinances were not redrafted in the dark. And of course, any ordinance that get redrafted will be sent to council. I've already circulated 2 or 3 ordinances for review, but have not brought those for council yet, and we'll be bringing those shortly. Okay. And the license inspection report. So I did, with the help of Mrs. Stamos, sent the code officials a document, a little note saying that new ordinances or the 2018 codes are in effect for across the board, and that enforcement should begin. I invited anyone who had any questions to talk to me about it.
And the inspectors are all up to code with that.
Good, thank you. And the energy code is a new code for the borough. I am working with the Department of Community and Economic Development, has a contractor, PSD Development, who educates municipal officials on how to enforce the energy code. I am working with them to try to coordinate training that is all paid for by DCED. It's not paid for by Parkside Borough for that training. And that's also what I do professionally, so I'll be able to assist in that training. But I will not be doing any enforcement or participating in any enforcement of the code. That's beyond my role as a council member. Okay, and so there were 11 building permits, 4 plumbing permits, and 1 electrical permit. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Powers.
Thank you, Madam President. Public Works, all borough properties have been maintained. The borough truck went out last Tuesday to have a new stainless steel bed installed. We hope to have it back sometime the week of Halloween. If the truck does make it back, leaf collections will start the first week of November. Starting November 1st, we will try and pick up the leaves every other weekday, weather permitting. With a tentative end schedule of leaves will be Tuesday, November 22nd. Let me remind you that we cannot pick up leaves when they're wet, and all leaves must be raked to the curb so they can be picked up. If leaves go longer, like last year, they didn't drop till late, we'll stay out there later to get them, but we'll assure you that all the leaves will be picked up if they're raked to the curb. New Watch children's signs were installed on the first 100 block of East Roland. And can I just go into the other offices?
Sure, please.
I received a letter tonight for concerned resident with health issues on Burden Road, which I'll investigate tomorrow. I had 1 health inspection for the new candy shop that opened up. So all their licenses and registrations are up to date. Along with weights and scales from Delaware County was in to certify their scales since they're weighing candy. So they are ready to go and set for a grand opening, I believe, on November 4th.
So if you haven't stopped in there yet, they're really nice people and they're looking forward to selling their candy. Under emergency management, I can report general progress. And fire marshal report, there was an apartment fire that took out 2 units on Parkside Terrace on Saturday. 1 person was injured. The cause of fire was accidental, unattended with a hoarding issue, cooking. Pot was left on the stove and the person forgot about it. She became trapped in the fire. She was rescued. Investigation's closed. That's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Percival.
Thank you. The recycling report and the trash, we had 92.87 tons of regular household trash, 14.11 of recycling trash. That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Swigert, Communications.
First thing I want to say, Ms. Percival, I didn't have a chance to respond to your email. If I can talk to you after council tonight,
Sure.
and I'll give you answer to your question. Newsletter went out recently. Next communications meeting will be Tuesday, 6:30 here in council chambers. I want to thank Theo for all the work that he's been doing on helping with the newsletter and everything else with trying to get a ton of information on the website recently. So thank you very much for doing that. Other than that, I can just say general progress.
Thank you very much. So the next meeting is
Tuesday, this coming Tuesday,
at
25th, I believe it is, right? 25th, 6:30.
Oh, yeah, that's 2023. Yeah, all right, thank you very much. And what's next? We got the tax collectors. Mr. Rodo. your
Thank you,
turn.
Madam President. 2022 road program for the beacons, design plans for signal permit will be resubmitted by the end of the week for PennDOT review. Beacons were ordered on October 13th in the amount of $31,497 for materials and installation. There will be additional costs for curb and signing associated with removing the crosswalk and the ADA ramps on the eastern side of the intersection. Highway occupancy permit coordination with PennDOT has taken place as well, and the permit process will be started. That will be required, there was some question whether or not we would need a separate HOP, but we do. Paperwork for a pedestrian study will also be needed to remove that crosswalk. It's really just paperwork and forms and explanations, no actual counts, as part of remove the crosswalk, and I will do this as well. For the paving portion, AF Damon has been on site the past 2 days and paving is complete. Request for payment will be submitted by the contractor next month. Edgemont Avenue sinkholes, the survey is complete and engineering has been started. There are a few grant opportunities and summaries to go through. Delco Greenways grant application for the West Cole project was submitted on October 7th. County's grant award decision should be announced next month. DCNR special fall round grant, as discussed last month, we're applying for the grant for upgrades to Woodlot for ADA parking and installation of a rain garden. There's a 20% match and a resolution is needed, which we have tonight. As previously mentioned, the 2020 Pico Green Region grant expires December 7th, 2022, and we need a borough email sent to Estelle Wynn Dolan from Natural Lands explaining the circumstances so we don't lose that funding. Just keep that in mind. And also the ARPA PA Small Water and Sewer Program application. Just like to see if council would like to apply to assist with the Edgemont Avenue sinkhole project. And if so, we'll need a resolution. I can prepare that for next month's meeting. There's a $100 application fee and a 15% minimum match.
We were gonna have to pay for it anyway.
Exactly. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Excellent. And so you said we need an email. Will you work with Tamika on that?
Sure.
Okay.
One quick question.
Yeah.
Mr. Rhodes, there was a street opening, I believe by Danella, on the 200 block of West Shelton. It looks like they went deep for something. So I don't know if that can be included in some of the repair work, the insurance and everything else. I'm not sure if the rest of the council noticed it, but whatever it was significant. So
We'll get to that.
Yeah, please do.
A question for Mr. Maroon?
Yes.
The extra information that you threw out there on the beacons, the curb signs, ADA ramps, is there a cost factor on what these extras will cost?
I believe I had it in correspondence previously. It could be
Yes, just
anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000 for removing the curb
Mhm.
because it's depressed curb where the ramp is,
right.
and putting back upright curb and removing part of the ramp and possibly a couple sidewalk blocks.
Is that eligible under liquid fuel monies, or is that going to be out of general fund?
I will check on that. I believe it would be.
Okay,
In addition to that, eradication of the paint crossing on that crosswalk, and also a few signs. When you remove a crosswalk as part of the pedestrian study, you have to sign in each direction that pedestrians aren't allowed to cross there. So there will be a few signs that will be added as well.
okay. And you'll let us know if that's eligible under liquid fuel or
Yes.
general fund? We missed the deadline on another grant, and I believe we all agreed that we should beg and borrow. Have we heard if we've, been approved for that grant or can resubmit?
That's what I didn't receive any acknowledgement of whether or not we
Okay.
received it or not. It sounded like I thought someone received the notification that we have not, which I have not seen anything since we asked Paul Weiss to consider it.
So Mr. Lutz hasn't contacted you back as to our eligibility for that?
I don't know if we're going to receive verification on eligibility, but if it's approved, he has not responded, but I
Okay,
don't think there's an official approval process. We're going to find out in the end and when everyone else does, but I will email him again to try to get an answer.
I'm sorry, did you say there was resolutions that we had to pass tonight? Or?
The action items I have was a resolution for Woodlot for a DCNR grant that is due, deadline is next Thursday, so,
That's this?
yes.
Oh, everything.
Oh, yeah, that's why you get the big ones.
So, all right, here's the proposed resolution. Whereas Parkside Borough desires to undertake the project Woodlot Park ADA parking and stormwater improvements, and whereas the applicant desires to receive from the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources a grant for the purpose of carrying out this project, and whereas the application package includes a document entitled Terms and Conditions of Grant, and whereas the applicant understands that the content of the document, terms and conditions of grant, including the appendices referred to therein, will become the terms and conditions of a grant agreement between the applicant and the department if the applicant is awarded a grant. Now therefore it is resolved, the grant application may be electronically signed on behalf of the applicant by Kimberly Roman, who at the time of signing has the title of mayor and her email address. If the official signed the grant application authorization prior to the passage of this resolution, this grant of authority applies retroactively to the date of signing. If the applicant is awarded a grant, the grant application, electronic authorization signed by the above official, the mayor, will become the applicant grantee's executed signature page for the grant agreement, and the applicant grantee will be bound by the grant agreement. Any amendment to the grant agreement may be signed on behalf of the grantee by the mayor, and the grantee will be bound by the amendment. I hereby certify this resolution was adopted by the Borough of Parkside this 19th day of October 2022. In fact, you vote for it.
I'll make that motion.
second,
So, I saw the plans, Mr. Rhoda, for the project. So, we're gonna, as I understand it, we're gonna take out some grass, like where the bench is with the tree that fell out, and put parking in there.
Yes.
Okay. And the parking on the street is not sufficient the way we have it already?
ADA accessible parking cannot be on-street parking, as DCNR requires.
And how many parking spots?
We are proposing 2 handicap or ADA accessible spaces and 3 regular spaces in that lot, and also adding 3 designated on-street parking spaces, non-ADA. where the ramps are currently.
Okay.
A
And
total
then,
of 5 plus 2 ADA,
okay.
total of 7.
And then where's the rain garden gonna be? That was the other part of the project, right? The parking
Yes.
spots in the rain garden.
Just before the turn, behind the sidewalk, down from the slope that comes down from the turn there. So
So collecting the water that's coming
coming
down.
down the slope
down
and
the
from the
slope.
sidewalk on the upper end before it gets to Park Valley.
I see.
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Thank you.
And you got what you needed from us on the small stores?
I was just going to ask that.
I was
Do we
just gonna ask that.
have a motion for that?
What, we need a motion for?
To prepare the
Apply for the
resolution?
grant. Apply for
Okay.
that.
We also apply for the small sewer and water grant to offset or hopefully offset some of the Edgeland Avenue issues.
That's
I
the
thought you were
purpose.
preparing the resolution for November.
It was, but do we need a motion to apply?
Do we need a motion to apply for this?
So
Hey, what's- Joe,
gonna bring a
what's the deadline?
resolution to the.
Mid-December.
Okay. I'll make.
I think,
I think it's the same day as the meeting is the deadline.
In December,
Yes,
so you could vote
So
for
you're-
the November meeting?
yes.
so you're asking us, would, you as the engineer are asking us, would you like us to prepare a small sewer and water grant? And I think that we
Yes, I mean,
would all be.
previously, I think there was a motion to go ahead and give us the ability to, but I don't know if it's necessary to apply.
I'll entertain a motion.
Make that motion.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You got it. Okay, are you done?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Speaking of resolutions for November, I'll bring you a resolution. There's something called Act 57 that the Harrisburg passed, and it just has to do with waiving late fees and penalties in a very limited circumstance. An issue that continually arises with local property taxes is that people claim they didn't get their tax bill. And as we all know, if you don't pay your tax bill by a certain time, it goes up. You know, there's a discount period, there's a normal period, and there's a penalty period. And municipalities are always fielding requests to waive the fees and penalties, which you cannot do. But apparently enough people complained about one specific situation. That is when you buy a house and the tax bill goes to the people who used to own the house, and you get a hit with a penalty. Under those circumstances, the penalty is now to be waived. And so we have to pass a resolution authorizing essentially Mr. Fisher to waive those penalties. So it's all required by the state. There's really no choice on your part. I mean, I guess you could vote against it, but we're required to pass the resolution. And in that limited circumstance, we can waive the taxes and penalties.
Okay.
That's Act 57, and I'll have that resolution for you next week. So it's all set. It'll be in place when you pass the budget at the end of December and the tax bills go out in January.
Thank you. Anything else?
No.
Wow. Okay. We are done with the solicitor's report. Now comes the call to citizens. If anyone would like to speak, you do not have to say your address since it is being broadcast, but I would ask that you write your name and address on the details, so Mr. Tanika.
Andrew Slowick, 142 East Roman Road. My question is mostly for the police chief. The new officer that we get for part-time, how much will that take off our budget to Brookhaven?
Well, it doesn't take anything off until he's fully trained and ready to go. We are in the process of doing that now. And then for every hour that he works, we save $62.50 an hour.
So any idea what that projected out, how much that would be savings for us? Because didn't somebody quote 32,000? Wasn't there a quote of 32,000?
Sure, we've paid,
$120 as of now.
yeah, we've paid Brookhaven a small amount in July And then for the month of August and September, those bills have been submitted and paid. We have not been invoiced for October yet because it hasn't been completed. So for every 8-hour shift that we have a part-timer covering, we will save $500.
Okay, and this officer would give us how many shifts, you think?
At this point, I don't know. At this point, I don't know.
And Chief,
Okay.
I mean, we don't actually save $500 because we still have to pay
Well, we're
the
paying-
officer for
yeah.
6 hours.
We're not paying Brookhaven that $500.
I mean,
Okay.
it almost comes down to a wash, but.
No.
No.
You're spending $62.50 an hour for Brookhaven to cover. Our officers
$22.70.
make $22.
$22.70 an hour.
$22.70.
The hard thing to calculate is, because Brookhaven is taking a lot of risk by, I'm just, informing the public is all I'm trying to say. So there's a lot of risk for covering a shift of injury. If our officer's not there and it's a Brookhaven officer, they're at risk for injury. So we assume a lot of that risk, in the budget. That doesn't necessarily go to the hourly rate, but the total cost for an officer, looking at our budget, is around the same price as we're paying Brookhaven. I think that's what Mrs. Guy was trying to say.
Okay, the only other question I have for that is that we are going to get another full-time officer next year, and possibly a second one behind that. There was quite a bit of discussion, and I was involved in it, and I made my point clear about putting another officer on. I don't know how, hopefully I can make the budget meeting, but that's a lot of money coming out of us. And we're already, I would think, in that department, over budget for the year. I'll bet you 10-1 we're over budget.
Actually, it's actually not over budget because we had such a shortfall of officers and because Brookhaven had been covering us. It's actually, I think it was around 50% of the budget is what it's been expended so far.
So none of our departments are over budget.
I don't know about none of the budgets, but police was around 50, I think it was maybe 54% of the budget
Right now.
at the end of September.
So we're 75% through the year, we're 54% of budget.
The police overtime is
But that's just one-
137.6 overtime.
Right, but that's just one lot. If you look at part-time, it's like a third, something, because we haven't spent as much on part-time officers because there aren't as much part-time officers.
Okay, I'm not going to say that, but I'll be honest with you, the way I feel myself personally, to me personally, somebody's playing with me. To me, the numbers are not right. Then I don't care. The numbers aren't not right. And I have enough accounting and bookkeeping service knowledge to know that. And we got to take on another full-time officer and maybe a second one. And you know how much that is. And Mr. Powell there mentioned it, how much money it's going to cost us. That's a lot of money. And we're already paying some other guy the services for it.
Well,
We're going to be stretched. I really think our budget's going to be stretched.
So it is a lot of money. And, I would recommend anybody come to the budget meetings, find out
Yes.
the information, tell us what you think, because as an elected official, it's very helpful to know what the public thinks and what the public wants, because we're representing you all. It is a lot of money, but the benefit of hiring 2 additional officers is we wouldn't have to go to Brookhaven for $15,000 a month and pay them that.
Right.
So that money that we're paying to Brookhaven would go down basically to zero. So, and, we don't really have many other options other than contracting with another municipality.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Because
we're
what's
limited.
bothering me, I'm telling you, what's bothering me is we're going to come up on budget. And I mentioned this a couple months ago. Are we going to get a tax increase? Are we going to get a tax increase next year because of what we have to put out?
In all honesty, probably, yes.
Oh, Jesus, Lord. Okay, I'd rather have you be honest with me up front in October.
Right.
Because somebody wasn't that fair to me a couple months ago when I brought the same issue up. So we're telling me that we're going to probably get a nail. We're going to get nailed for some money.
Well, we don't, probably yes. We don't know what it was going to look like because we're still finalizing.
Okay.
But, like you said, 2 additional officers is expensive, and
I know.
the benefits that come with that.
I understand that.
But I think, we've had conversations about
Yes, sir, we
policing
have.
in the future of this community, and I think people want a police department here.
Sure.
So if people want a
Like we need a
police,
fire department.
yeah, I agree. And if we want a police department here, then we're gonna have to pay for that police department. So, and unfortunately, the nature of policing, as the chief will tell you, he's told me, many times that it's not like it used to be where we could have all part-time officers run our department most.
Right.
So we need to go to full-time. And, there's a cost to that. And, if I would recommend anybody, come to the meetings and let us know what you think,
Because there is a lot of people who are on fixed income in this
I know,
borough.
I know.
And I'll raise my hand because I'm one of them, sir.
I hear that. And,
And it's not,
I would just-
easy, sir.
No, I can definitely respect that. I would just ask people to think, would you rather have a Parkside Police Department here, or would you want to pay Brookhaven a similar amount, or would you want to look at other options? I think as a council, we feel like the people want a police department here.
Right.
And if you want a police department here, your taxes are going to go up. That's the bottom line.
Okay, well, yeah, at least you're honest with me.
Minnie DiDomenico on 16 Beechwood Road. My question is, are we over budget now or close to over budget?
No.
No?
No.
Okay. I just had a question. I'm allowed to ask the question. Also, Mr. Sudlow, did I hear correctly that you were accusing of council stealing money from the borough residents? Is that what I heard? That's what I heard.
I am saying a former member of this council, while they were a council member, told the community that they were doing work for free, then submitted a bill, did not make it known that there was a bill in front of council to be voted on, that if that was going to compensate that council member, and then he voted on it.
So you were calling them, saying that we have somebody that was stealing from us. Why aren't they being prosecuted then?
I'm saying it was an improper authorization of funding and inappropriate for him to not inform council that he was being paid on the budget.
Some council members knew and others say they didn't. That's just the thing.
Hi, everybody. My name is Allison Giannakis, and I live at 120 West Forestby Road. I have a question, but I'll ask that after I have a brief statement. Just to introduce myself to everybody here at the council meeting, most people may or may not recognize my house as the house with the lion statue on the sidewalk. I've been a resident of Parkside for over 20 years, and before that, it was my parents' house, and before that, it was my grandparents who lived in the house. So my grandparents were actually the originator of that lion on the sidewalk. With that said, this is the first time that I've ever been to a council meeting, let alone made any kind of a public statement. But out of necessity, I have been given no other option. I'd like to take this opportunity to respond directly to the council president regarding her statement that was read in lieu of a president's report at last month's September council meeting. I say in lieu because, in contrast to other council reports, I believe it failed to provide any relevant new information. The statement was picking up where you left off from the previous council meeting. I believe in an extended attempt to discredit and publicly berate your colleagues under the guise of not being given the opportunity to explain how much money could be saved if other options for employing code enforcement and inspections officers were explored. But when the reality is that the agenda item and the issue had been previously discussed before with the council and also not passed on a vote. So in my opinion, the majority of council and residents alike have all spoken. They've relayed their opinion on the value, speaking on the value in the multitude of services both currently and historically, that have been provided to the borough and reinvested into the borough by these valued employees and residents. But while in contrast, your statement directly described not only those unchanged fees as robbing the residents, but described Mr. Capabianco directly and others as practicing self-enrichment, which I would consider a loose term for being a thief. In addition, at the time, you didn't have an answer to the question that was presented to you at that time as to why now there was the interest in the fees and those employees versus the previous years that you have been on council. I know that you supplied an answer now a month later. While I cannot speak specifically to the examination of those fees or your research, what I can speak to, and mostly the reason that I'm here, is the direct reference to me in that statement and how you only provided the details that fit your ferociously self-serving motive and narrative. For reference, in the statement, Mrs. Guy described the actions of the borough's code enforcement officer, Nick Capabianco, as personal attacks and bullying in the form of unsubstantiated or fictitious, as you said tonight, complaints for the code violations on her property or by friends of Shirley's. She chose to manipulate her own experience to benefit herself and make it personal while providing a lie as truth and evidence with absolutely no proof. I know this to be true because I, in fact, am the actual person who filed the complaints to the borough regarding the dilapidated property. I will not be reduced to merely a vague description of a political enemy. So, Mrs. Guy, you are not a victim or a target of personal attacks, but you are, in fact, the owner of a property with a dilapidated garage with no roof that was a safety health concern and needed to be dealt with for years with no action.
Are you Barbara Merritt? Because that was.
To
the
be
first
clear,
question.
excuse me, I'm speaking. To be clear, this had nothing to do with politics or associations. So you don't get to describe it, me or my complaint, merely by describing me in your statement as a random fictitious person.
I wasn't talking about you, I was talking.
Unlike
about
you,
Barbara
I
Merritt.
have proof and I am more than happy to provide any pictures or documentation of the sort to anyone that wants it. My suspicion to the answer of the question that you a month later answered tonight as to why there was the sudden interest in the fees, et cetera. I, in my opinion, believe that there is no interest in or an issue with what you state to be the exorbitant fees or even saving the borough money. By fact, your statement is grounded in personal hate and at the very least, undocumented hearsay. So, Mrs. Guy, that makes you the very thing that you accused another of. Mrs. Guy, you are the bully. You are using your position to execute personal vendettas against council members, employees, and even residents alike. I know this to be true because I am, in fact, a target of such behavior. Since the complaint and the violation, you have effortlessly, deliberately, and continuously attempted to bully me regarding my property by means of total disregard to the point of police involvement. Again, I have hours of video and proof that I'm more than happy to supply upon request. For reference, Mrs. Guy has been my direct neighbor with an adjacent driveway for the better part of 15 years, and most of that time has been uneventful. It goes without saying that the property maintenance issue was evolving, but more recently, as the relationship became more contentious, I had to involve the Parkside Police for the first time in my life to protect my property from continual damage. I've had my property officially surveyed, so there's no confusion about boundaries, but that didn't stop them from defacing and destroying my property and markers. I believe this is not only in retaliation for the complaint, but also because Mrs. Guy has a total lack of respect for any person, place, or thing that does not align with her interests or entitlements. The residents of Parkside should know that this is the kind of person representing the borough. This is the kind of person making decisions for the borough. And this is the kind of person who is an example of our borough. I have been in a leadership role in my career for a lot longer than you have been on council, and I would never treat my colleagues, employees, neighbors, or even my friends the way that has been publicly on display at these meetings and on social media. It is at best unprofessional and at worst utterly embarrassing. I think you should spend more time on the betterment of the borough and less time on personal vendettas. Our residents, including myself, should get truth and better representation. So my question is, since the solicitor fees were either already over budget or expected to be over budget, do we have something in place to curtail that and keep it from getting extremely out of control? No, we don't have a plan.
If I could just say something about the solicitor fees, I said this last month also. I have the bill for here somewhere of their fees, and if you look, they break it down. They itemize everything that they've done, and then at the bottom is our retainer. So their services would have cost $4,800 because of a retainer. It's $1,600. The reason that the fees are so high is if you look at right to know requests, the total for that is $4,200.
Right, that's what was said at the last council meeting, that it was basically because of that and the excessive number of requests that were received. So that can also be included in the answer to my question. Like, is there something that we're going to be doing or putting in place so that that can be addressed,
Well,
whether it's putting more information out?
I can answer that. We've actually been putting all of the minutes online. Tamika's been working to get all of the minutes online. We're also putting all of the RTKs that have been requested, all the information that's been gathered from those right to knows are now going to be made public since the borough has paid to get that information. And also, we're going to do a project to get all of our ordinances online. So we're really working to put financial information, all the information we can out on the web so that everyone can see it without having to make a right to know request.
Okay, so then the answer would be if the right to know requests and the excessive amount of them is primarily the cause for the over budget on the solicitor fees, then there is that plan in place to try at least to curtail them.
Right, and we can't do anything about people who submit the request. If somebody submits a request, we have to respond to it because that's the law. So the only way that those fees go down is if the number of right to know requests goes down. And I respect the fact that the public has the right to know this information, but I think making it more accessible is a good step in that process. And
Well, maybe determining why there's so many this year
well,
versus
I
any
think
other year.
from my perspective, the reason why is because unfortunately we have a community that is very divided and can't seem to get along with one another. And I think that's the root of
requests.
what's that?
They're baseless.
I wouldn't say that they're baseless, but I think if you look at the requests, they're usually targeted at certain people because they're political enemies.
And like, if that's something that's gonna be put on the website for the residents and myself to look at, we would be able to determine that. We'd be able to see and look at those requests and say, wow,
I think
that's why there's so many requests this year.
I think I'm a pretty neutral observer, and I think that's the reason. And I think anybody looking at, I don't know what all information they're going to put out there, but it's pretty clear to me that most of the requests we get are people targeting their political enemies.
Well, hopefully then the residents will have an opportunity to make that decision for themselves.
I hope so.
Can I just mention, our ordinances have been on our website. So if you go under the ordinance, it's under E-code, and that's been on there for many, many years. So I don't think that's anything new. Last bill that I saw, over $1,000 was spent in ordinances. And in a comparison, and I did this very quickly, by September of 2021, we spent $17,329.32 on our solicitor at that time. September of 2022, the last report I have, we are at $30,115. So we're approximately double.
Well, I
The
think
same
any
time
area,
period.
my specific question was about the solicitor fees, but I think any other area where it's largely over budget should be
And
specifically explained.
to Mrs. Percival's point, the reason it's so much higher is because we didn't have these kind of right to know requests. before.
Our last solicitor charged $165 an hour. Mr. Amuso charges $185 an hour. So there is an hourly difference. And yes, have we had more right to knows than we did this time last year? Most definitely.
And just for the record, again, as I pointed out last month, those ordinance, it was really important that we updated those ordinances because they were out of date, some of them, and we were open to liability. As the solicitor had said last month, there were other municipalities that had been sued because their ordinances were out of date, and they lost in court because their ordinances were out
That
of
was
date.
one. That was one that was out of date, one. And Mr. Amuso gave us the actual lawsuit information on the one ordinance that was out to date. Our ordinance has been on E-code since we've had the website. So why people
That
don't
was
go
all-
into the ordinances,
But
I don't know.
I'm sorry, not that the ordinances were out of date, but the code,
Yeah, it was the UCC code.
Right.
It was out of date. It needed to be updated to show the 2018
Right.
versus.
and it costed a lot of money to advertise that.
That's different from
That's fine,
attorney
yeah.
fees.
But you mentioned.
Okay. Would anyone else like to speak for public comment?
Sarah Haynes. A few months ago during correspondence, a letter came in from a resident named Kyle Palmer stating that she filed a right to know and requested Nick's information, and she knew exactly what to ask for. So I'm wondering, how exactly did she know what to ask for? Why is this coming up now when Parkside is conveniently looking to replace our residents and hire outside of the borough? Because all of a sudden this administration cares about the history of its employees and ethics. Here's what I understand about what's going on. It looks like Anna and Scott want to replace hardworking employees. It looks like if they can't convince council to replace their jobs with strangers, they will bully them out, slander their name, and go above and beyond, calling Nick a corrupt politician publicly when he still has to live here with us. If any of this is going on, why can't it be handled in the office, employer to employee at a desk? Did anyone even try to sit down and talk to each other outside of this meeting? After Kyle's letter, I too was interested. So I asked, and the answer I got was cleaning supplies during COVID was way more expensive than they are now. For example, a $20 gallon of hospital grade disinfectant, that's now $20, was $50 for a steady 2 years. This can be found on camel.com. This doesn't include rags, masks, gloves, sanitizer, 2 whole years worth. If you take the $8,000 over 2 years, that's $83 a week. I asked what he was cleaning. Police officer cars in between each of the shifts to keep the officers safe. Where were you, Scott and Anna? Each of you were getting paid $7,200. Do you have any solid evidence to show Parkside that you were even paying attention those 2 years?
We don't get paid $7,200.
Please don't interrupt me.
They do. Are you gonna be much longer?
Well,
You gonna bully me too, Anna?
No.
Like you do on the internet and your friends? Are there any other communities in Delco that hire counsel for jobs?
No.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Who?
Please stop interrupting me.
Who?
Upland Borough.
Upland Borough hires council members? to work for them?
Yeah.
Yeah. I said, no.
I can name two.
I'm playing boroughs. Council president, no. I'm playing boroughs.
No, they're not.
Marcus Hook. Marcus Hook.
Marcus Hook? I'll check that.
I just did.
Their borough's president is also a tree
That's completely inappropriate.
It is not, it's.
And the fees.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, Miss Sarah, go ahead. I've got the law right here if you need to read it.
So I looked into our permit fees, and Colwyn has the same population and budget as us, and they are currently in bankruptcy. And after much investigation, they decided to raise their fees to be up to date with the current economy, and their fees are now the figures that Parkside is using. I hate the way I feel in front of you. And then I looked into this lister budget in Upland, and he had a $60K retainer, and the legal fees in 2021 were over $100,000. In 2021 in Parkside, as Shirley said, was $32,000. And also, what's with these passive-aggressive comments? Like you said to Shirley, you insinuated that our fees need to be higher than our neighbors. Grow up.
Judy Saunders, 62 East Shelton Road. I wasn't going to speak tonight, but let's go for it. If we are going to talk that this is the first time at these council meetings that you've been here, I have been here for many years. So I can tell you that have been other council members who have bullied on social media, who have threatened on social media people's children. And we're fine with that. We were all cool with that. That was okay. So let's make sure that when these people, these Democrats that the community elected because they won by popular vote, first came to this council meeting, Scott was on rec committee. Remember, Scott? I was there with you. We would meet in Phil and Jim's. At one point, the pandemic was looming, and we were planning this event we put so many hours into. And at that meeting, when we found out that it had to be canceled because of the pandemic, I said, guys, don't be disappointed at this. I know it's a lot of hours we put in, but let's just say this is a good thing because we have more time to go for the next thing. And at the very next meeting, President Shirley Percival said that she had an anonymous tip, never had to mention who it was, that told her that Scott was gleefully saying he was happy about the pandemic because he hated being on the rec committee. And if I recall, immediately after that, he was taken off the rec committee and it was given to Perry, and he was made a councilman at large. These type of actions have been going on for a while. I'm asking you, guys, let's all play together. I'm sorry, I'm trying. I'm really, really trying. But when people get up here and act like she's the bully and bullying has never happened in this borough before and that children weren't affected by it and children weren't threatened by it while you all sat at your homes and didn't come here, that's a lie. That is a lie. There have been people in this residency who were bullied and harassed by council members while every other council member on this committee, on this council, sat there and did nothing. Didn't respond to emails, didn't respond to statements. There was one point where there was letter after letter attacking Anna and Scott for next to nothing. And the very next meeting, we all labored over letters because we had walked past those gentlemen with their guns, with their attack dogs, with them screaming the N-word at children. And we wrote letters to say, this is what happened. This is why Anna tweeted this way. We were all scared. Our children, our 16-year-olds, our 14-year-olds were marching past armed men saying horrible, horrible things. Those letters weren't read because those letters didn't fit the narrative. And all of a sudden, those letters were divisive. The letters before that attacked the Democrats, those were read, gloriously read. Linda just slathered at the mouth while she did. The next time, all of a sudden, without a vote, it was determined that any letters were divisive and we weren't going to read them. I'm asking you to come together and serve us all. It's not just the Democrats and Republicans. We are neighbors here. And unfortunately, neighbors have conflicts, and sometimes you have to deal with that. Okay, I appreciate that, but I will tell you that when our guy came out to fix our plumbing, which was a plumbing repair, and had to get a permit, they were all sitting outside laughing because they had never heard of that for a repair in any other borough. That was $150 out of our pocket because they hadn't budgeted for it because they had never heard of it in another borough. When the house next door to us was being flipped and Nick was going over there and fine tuning everything, whether he needs to or not, these guys were like, this is insane. This is I don't even know why we're flipping this house. We'll never do another one in Parkside. That does happen. If it's going to save us money, we're talking about not wanting cops because it saves us money, but we want to also simultaneously pay our people on the council to do their jobs, to keep them employed. I'm sorry. I shouldn't be as upset about this as I am. We should work together, but to stand here and act like bullying just happened when that woman took that seat is a lie. It's
No,
an
it's not.
absolute lie.
No, it's not.
Okay, you know what?
No, it's not.
How many people had people on this council personally dox them? That guy got Citizen of the Year or Millennium Award. Okay, how many people had their child have rape threats against them because of a member on this council calling her out as being a manager at Wawa when she was not even there? And nothing was done. I'm sorry. Don't be hypocrites about this. Like, honestly, let's be honest. Let's work together. Michael is trying to get us to all work together, and for some reason we can't. And I am super sorry, but if Nick, who said every single meeting he could get up that he was doing it free of charge, is spending $8,000 in supplies, that's bullshit. Thank you.
Excuse me.
She doesn't deserve
Yeah, neither do you.
Okay.
Yeah.
On to old business, please. Motion to purchase outdoor community board.
I don't know if we're really, I know the last time we had met, we weren't sure where it was gonna be, and we were gonna do it with the park, with the grants for the park or something, so I don't really know. I don't know what the status of that is right now. I think we're, yeah,
Let's put it off till next month.
yeah.
All right,
We table it.
next.
So, do we have to make a motion for that?
No.
No.
Delta Core discussion, who put that on the agenda? Anybody put that on the agenda?
I thought
I
that
think
we
it
were
was
gonna
from last
determine if
time.
we were gonna do like a retainer to find a lawyer and start the process of getting our own lawyer for the Delcora process.
I'm going to suggest that we hold off on that until
Okay.
we actually need a lawyer. There's no reason to start paying a retainer to a lawyer until we actually need to make a decision.
Excuse me, our contract with Delcora, and I know our solicitor has to be excused for this or have no input.
Yes.
Our contract ends November 17th. I don't know why you keep
Of this
putting
year?
this off. Yes. And I said this at the last meeting, and I've given, Mr. Sidla wanted to know how I know all this stuff. I've given him the actual PUC complaint case number, along with a list of other attorneys that are representing various municipalities that have a private agreement with Delcora. If this lawsuit is settled and we're not protecting our rights, I don't want to say we're screwed, but we're going to have very limited ability to negotiate anything without a special counsel. And also, if I gave Ms. Tamika a copy of the agreements I had, the one in 1985 is also involving our neighboring community, and they're already seeking counsel because, I don't know how to put this gently, but our flow goes into the neighboring community, and they have a private solicitor dealing with Delcora and this lawsuit. I don't know how we can continually put this off when it's expiring.
Which lawsuit are you referring to? The one?
I gave you a list of attorneys. If you'd like me to read them, I've got it.
Right, I understand. Now, what lawsuit are you referring to? Are we being sued? No. Are you talking about the lawsuit to try to prevent the sale of Delcora to
Miss-
Aqua?
As I said in my email to you, Mr. Sidlow, and to council, I read continually following the lawsuit with Delcora,
Right.
Delaware County, and Aqua's purchase.
Okay, so that's the one we're talking about. Okay,
That's, yes.
okay.
And Ms. Tamika, I believe I gave her a copy of our agreement, and all of council should have had a copy. Am I correct?
No, I did not forward it to everybody. Unfortunately, I was having problems getting it to all of council. I can certainly, get it all to council.
Okay. As I stated, we have an agreement that expires. It starts January 1st, 1985. I'm sorry, 1975. It expires November 17th of 2022. And part of this agreement is in conjunction with our neighboring community. There are numerous firms, as I stated in an email, that represent communities that have this type of agreement, which is unusual. Most municipalities at a later date went into a general agreement. This is an agreement between the Borough of Parkside and Delcora. So I'm not sure how, why or how we're continuing to ignore this subject. I mean, we're the elected officials. We're here to protect the concerns of our residents if indeed this sale goes through.
So what is your proposal?
My proposal is council look to have an independent special counsel on our behalf to look at our agreement, see where we will lose, what we can do to protect our interest if the sale to Aqua does go through.
I would agree with Mrs. Purcell. I think it makes sense to have a lawyer as our special counsel to prepare for this.
Is that a motion?
I will make a motion to, and
We need to add that to the agenda.
I'm sorry?
You have Delcora discussion, so
I
you're
just wanted to
fine.
check.
No, it's fine.
I make a motion to select special counsel to represent us with our Delcora agreement, which goes from January 1st, 1975 to November 17th of this year.
Is there a way to cap the cost?
I don't know what the solicitors are charging. I understand there's a gentleman, Joseph Volo, who's representing some of the municipalities. We have, let's see, Robert Scott represents Ambler Township. Campbell and Durant represents the city of Chester. Pachuca, Willman, Domenico Brown represent Edgemont Township. So there are a few townships and municipalities that have these special agreements. So we could reach out to any one of them. They're aware of the situation. The gentleman from Fort PA represents, or did represent, another local municipality. Lower Chichester, Upland, Edgemont Township, Trainer, have all been represented by Scott Rubin. I don't know if he's still representing any of them, but again, I can't keep repeating myself, but it's important for us to protect the rights of our residents with this issue. If Aqua comes in and purchases and the lawsuits are finished, we can't keep putting it off.
Okay, motion's out there. Did anyone second it?
So is the motion to hire or to inquire?
I would suggest that the president and vice president contact various solicitors. I sent an email out September 23rd. I gave information. I have the direct phone number for one solicitor I looked up. And I think we need to move on this. We're already almost the end of October. So I would suggest we leave it in the hands of the president and vice president of council to obtain special legal counsel to protect our rights.
Do you have a copy of our contract with Delcora?
I do.
Miss Tamika does, yes.
Thank you.
And keep in mind, our contract, the original contract from 1975, as I explained last meeting, also has an exhibit with it dated March 20th, 1985, that connects our neighboring borough to our contract. And that neighboring borough has already obtained legal counsel several months ago and are protecting their residents' rights during this sale issue. And it involves the flow of waste material through their municipality.
Okay,
try to
any
do that.
questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. On to new business.
Excuse me 1 minute, please. If, council, Mr. Vice President and, Mrs. Guy, if you do not have my email from September 23rd listing the various councils, I can give that to you. And if anybody needs a phone number, I'd be happy to pass on that phone number.
Okay, new business, who added this?
He told me to add this to change the date of the meeting.
I did.
I asked, Ms. Tamika.
I did.
You did? Oh,
Yeah.
I thought you did.
Oh, I was
Sorry.
just
Go ahead.
confused.
You did, huh?
Yes, I did. Council knows that we have changed the dates from the fourth Wednesday to the third Wednesday. I'd like to make a motion to advertise again another change in December. Our December meeting would be December 21st. I personally don't feel like being here 3 days before Christmas. And I'd like to make a motion to change and advertise our December meeting from December 21st to December 14th, which would be the second Wednesday of December.
I don't see why we need to do that. Don't feel like being here 4 days before Christmas. Most people are gonna be working that week.
I mean, I just, from a budgetary standpoint, I assume you approve your
Yes.
budget. I mean, that you gotta do it 30 days before the final budget. That'll make you too soon. Because you meet on the 16th of November, right?
Yes.
So if you approve your final budget as regularly scheduled on the 21st, you'll be fine. But if you do it on the 14th, that's cool for now. It's gonna be a little messed up.
I'll be home baking cookies.
Also, in previous years, we've always met on the third Wednesday of December, so that's the same this year.
The way the calendar falls this year is we normally would have met around the 18th. The way the calendar falls, we're not meeting until around the 21st, which is 4 days before Christmas. So I withdraw my motion.
Okay. Meeting's adjourned. Anyone want to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion.
I don't want to call it all
I have
by
new
myself.
business.
Somebody else said. What?
I have new business.
You have new business.
The trunk or treat sponsored by the Borough Council and the Parkside Fire Company will be October 29th from 4 to 7. Cars should be in the parking lot in front of the school no later than 3:45. If you get in after 3:45, you won't get in. We'll close it down. Obviously, the more cars, the better it is for the community, for the kids. Anybody has any questions, reach out to me. That's all I have.
All right. Somebody want to make a motion?
So moved.
Move, second.
All in favor?
Aye. Nice luck.
Go home.